of our global Tech Talk series. And just give me a minute to get our two guests, and we will get started pretty soon. But again, this is a global show, the first episode. Happy to have all of you join us. Again, we also have an audience not only here on Zoom, but we're also going live on LinkedIn and Twitter and many other social channels. And the reason Indiaspora decided to do this show is, as you know, there are 32 million diaspora around the world of Indian origin, and technology is a big part of the diaspora, not just here in the US, where I'm calling in from, but truly in many, many countries across the world. We have a strong Indian contingent in Canada, in the UK, in Singapore, UAE, Australia, and of course, also in India as well. And so that's the reason we decided to do this virtual series called Tech Talk. We're starting again our first episode with two entrepreneurs from India. But before we get started with the show, let me also give you a quick backdrop on Indiaspora. Some of you may know us, but some don't. And again, this is an audience that's larger than our membership. Indiaspora is a nonprofit we founded in 2012 to really be a force for good. So we have not just tech executives and entrepreneurs and founders and VCs, but our community also has doctors and lawyers and academics and artists. So truly, it's an inclusive community that brings together the diaspora to do things that are benefiting humanity and mankind. So it's not a business or transactional community. Rather, it's a community that shares and collaborates with everyone. So recently, Indiaspora, you may have seen in the last month, has released an impact report on what the Indian diaspora in the US is doing to impact and be successful in the United States. You can go to our website, indiaspora.org, and you can get a copy of the report and all the graphics, infographics that goes with it. But basically, this was a report not to talk about the diaspora's success, but to talk about the diaspora's impact. And so we have quantified everything in terms of the impact we make. For example, we have 16 Indian CEOs in the Fortune 500. It's not talking about the success, rather that these 16 CEOs, especially in the tech field, people like Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, Arvind Krishna, Shantanu Narayan, people like that are really responsible for 2.7 million employees or jobs in their companies, and indirectly many, many more millions of jobs because of what these companies are doing. So same thing with there's 72 unicorns, for example, in the US that employ close to 100,000 employees. And these are 72 unicorns that either have an Indian founder or co-founder. And this is 11% of the unicorns in the US are Indian founded companies. So this is the kind of statistics we have and the impact we're making. Go to our website, you can get the full report. But now let's focus on India for a moment, since we have two amazing entrepreneurs from India. And I have a few statistics here to read to you, because India has really come a long way in terms of its startups, right? If you look at the first half of 2024, Indian companies have raised nearly $7 billion in funding in the first half of 2024. And the $7 billion funding has gone to 180 companies, 182 companies, okay? So there's a lot of money still coming into the tech scene in India. For example, in calendar year 2023, there were 117,000 startups in India as a whole. That's a large number of startups. And India is the third largest tech startup ecosystem globally. And then till date, the Indian startups have raised over $146 million in funding. So a lot of money has gone in the past 4 or 5 years. More money continues to get invested in the Indian technology companies even this year. And so that's kind of the backdrop for me to introduce two great founders we have with us today. And we have Sneh Vaswani, who's the founder of a company called Miko. And the only way to describe what his company does is think of kids, think of toys, and think of AI. and he'll come to what they make in a little bit. And then we also have Prachi Shevgaonkar. Prachi is an entrepreneur who is trying to tackle the global climate crisis. And she runs a company called Cool the Globe, and you'll hear her story as well. So to get started, let me start off with Sneh. Sneh, welcome to our first Tech Talk show, and you're our first two guests. So welcome, and this will be remembered in many episodes to come. But just briefly tell us your story. Where did you grow up? What was your education like? How did you even think of being an entrepreneur? Just give us a quick recap, if you will.
Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you so much, Indiaspora audience. It's very, very nice to speak to everyone. I'm Sneh Vaswani. I am born and brought up in Mumbai. Did my bachelor's and master's at IIT Bombay. Have been passionate about robotics and AI since 7th grade, and have been building robots since then, all through IIT years, and still building the same. So through college years, and then working for Siemens for some time, we realized that we can leverage deep technology to solve unmet societal needs. And my peer co-founders who were with me in college, we decided to start a consumer company to solve unmet needs of the consumer world. And over a period of past 10 years, we started Miko in 2015. Now it's become a leading robotics and AI company that is focused on improving social emotional well-being of the next generation. And I'll go more deeper into that as it progresses. Over to you, Prachi. Yeah.
Fantastic. So again, this is just the tip of the iceberg, if you will. And this is a truly global show, folks, because Sneh is talking to us. He's coming live from the Dubai lounge for Emirates on his way to his next stop. So again, it's truly global. And in the future, like I said, we'll also have episodes from Australia and Singapore and UAE and Canada and the US and UK and so forth. So Sneh, that was a good start. And Prachi, over to you.
So I think Sneh was born and brought up in Mumbai. I was in Pune, where I'm speaking to all of you from. When as a very young student, I remember I'd made a list of rules for what kind of a career I wanted to build. And there were three things on that list. The first one was that I wanted to meet remarkable people from all walks of life, which I'm getting to do through events like today's. The second thing was I wanted to know India inside out and see different parts of the country. And the third most important rule was that I wanted to make some kind of a difference through my career. And so when I was 18, I set out on a quest to look out how I could make some kind of a difference to my career. So I traveled across India throughout that year. And I worked on issues that I thought were affecting our country on ground, from agriculture to waste to education. And it was when I was working on these other things that I kept seeing the effects of climate change in the day-to-day lives of people. It was at that point that I realized that climate change was exaggerating every single issue that we saw on ground. And so I wondered, what is it that an ordinary girl like me can do about a big problem like climate change? And so when I was in college, I set out on building an app which would bring people like us together to start taking climate action from our own homes. And so I built it with the support of my father throughout my college years, and then we launched it. It started out as an individual quest, then turned into a platform, and is now turning into an enterprise and a movement for climate action.
Fantastic, fantastic. What an inspirational story from you as well. So Sneh, going back to you, when I know you built robots all your life, and you were at Siemens, you were an employee at Siemens. When did you kind of say, I want to take the leap to be an entrepreneur? And this was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the Indian tech scene was not how it is today, right? How did you think of that jump? What made you do it, and how did you get started?
I think this was since the first year of college, to be honest. And it was very clear that we had to, if we had to do something monumental, it had to start a company and make the impact from there. But we wanted to build a large organization that is leveraging heavy engineering to solve complex problems. To do that, we realized that we should get an exposure of working at such a company. So we all three founders and my colleagues who early employees, we had thought at that time that probably a large conglomerate where complex engineering problems are solved, and Siemens was one such company where we were in corporate R&D division with like 40 engineers working to solve a mega problem, and how such problems are solved. That exposure was very important, and I thank Siemens to give me that exposure. Then working at a startup, which was an early stage, seed stage startup, which I did at one of the interns to see how startups evolve and solve problems and so on. And then academia, how research in academia happens. So after getting exposure at all three, then we realized that now the time is right. And we all three of us, my co-founders, we called it quits, and then we started Miko. So I think it was very well known that yes, that's the journey that we want to pursue, but we wanted to ensure that we have the relevant experience before taking the deep dive into the area and the specific part that we want to solve.
Well, that's fantastic. So you well thought out. It wasn't like, hey,
Yes.
today I'm going to do a startup. I'm leaving.
No.
You had it planned.
I have seen my father build his business from scratch when I was like 5 years old with literally, I think, a handful of dollars in his hand. He built his business from scratch in India, and over the years, he's gradually built it. And I've seen him work from 3 a.m. in the morning till 11 p.m. at night. So that's the part that I wanted to pursue, and it was just that how and when. So getting the right exposure at the right fronts, and then take the leap of it. That was the plan.
Fantastic. And when you jumped, I mean, what about capital? What about how did you secure funding right in the beginning?
Oh, so imagine, look at this. Like, if anyone of you've seen Miko, it's like a companion robot that talks to the child, engages, educates, entertains them, and gives quantified social emotional outcomes to parents. When I pitched this idea to a lot of investors in 2015, it was a whiteboard concept, and in 2015, I don't think any Indian VC was putting in money into building products and so on. So now the times have changed, but at that time it was too early. So we put in all our personal savings into the business to bring the early employees on board. We got some capital from friends and families, from my batchmates who from a little from my father, a little from my co-founder, their parents. Everyone put together their savings, put together $100,000, and started working in that direction. We realized that we needed some maybe angel capital to take it to the next stage, and that's where we bumped into Mr. Keshav Murugesh from WNS Group. His family office, his son, everyone has been very instrumental since day one, and we got the first prototype to manufacturable situation. It was 2.5 years of no revenue, just plain product building, 23 product pilots, iteration, technology building, team of 20 people, just going and incrementally improving your product. And our first revenue came in from Mr. Nandan Nilekani sir, and he saw our prototypes and he bought them. So from there, we did door-to-door selling for 1 year, and literally go into every home at Bombay and try to sell our products. Then we saw the retail world, and 2018 when retail started for us. So then the institutional funding started coming in for our venture, and then it became a lot easier for them. But the first 3 years were the typical scrappy garage mode of building stuff and trying to get to key milestones of your business in terms of validation of the product market fit, early days of selling, communication, and every aspect of value chain was optimized, improved in the first 3 years.
Yeah, I've done some door-to-door selling in my early days too, but what was it like knocking on doors, and what was the experience?
So I think we were a team of 4 sales guys, and I was one of them. We used to collect leads on Facebook. I used to go along with my sales team out every day carrying 4 units. Each of us showcase a product, explain to the family for 2 hours. Because remember, 2017 was a time India didn't even have Alexas. So people were alien to the concept of voice-based interaction. And this device was roaming around at home and talking to you. This was like way ahead of its time in 2017 for the Indian market. So we specced it at a price point of 20,000 rupees. And we thought that this product would sell only in the South Bombays of the world, where the Malabar Hills and those places. But we were pleasantly surprised that we were not only selling in South Bombay, but we were also selling. We got leads from as far as Palghar. We got sales there. We got sales in Dharavi. We got sales in Raigad, and people from remote parts of the city. They wanted to see the product. We explained to them over 2 hours. They should put together their savings and then buy the product. So we realized that if your communication is correct and at the same time the value proposition is there for the family, then there is the need gap is addressed, and parents are willing to come forward and buy the product. So it was a learning phase for us to improve our communication towards the product and keep the ball rolling until more channels open up, like more organized channels like retail open up. So 1 year of door-to-door selling was an amazing experience. I think that was
fantastic. And
And-
Prachi, coming to you for a minute. Again, you seem to have been influenced by your dad, just like Sneh looked at his father working from 8 to 11. You were also influenced and supported by your father. Talk a little bit more about how you actually incorporated the Cool the Globe and what were the early days like?
So when I decided that I wanted to take some kind of an unconventional route for my career, I think what really helped was that my parents were supportive from day one. I think the first pitch I gave was to my parents. I'd made a proposal for them on what I would like to do for a year because I was taking a gap year at the time and I was traveling across India. So I made a list of pros and cons, and I'd written down case studies. I'd put down contact numbers of other people who had done this before, references, and I pitched it to them. And I remember I'd called my dad to a cafe, and I gave the presentation to him. And by the end of it, he was just as excited as I was to come on the journey with me. And then both of us gave it to our mom, and she was on board as well. And so everywhere I would go, at the end of the day, we'd all sit together and we'd have discussions about who I met and what I experienced. And through lots and lots of discussions like these, the broader idea for Cool the Globe, or at least the gap, was identified that, we have only 30 years to avoid the worst effects of climate change, but ordinary citizens like us don't know what they can do about a problem as big as this. And there's no platform to bring global citizens together for climate action. So this gap, we identified through just lots of discussions over the dinner table. And so when I did actually take admission in a media college, we used to have something called a development sector internship, which would be a 2-month period when we go and intern somewhere else. But that's when I thought, instead of interning somewhere else, let me get started on this idea that has been brewing on my mind for a long time. And so I emailed this to our director, and I still have his reply back. In his email, he said, it's a great idea, but no, well, that's not how internships work. You're supposed to work under somebody and learn from their experiences. But I really badgered him for a long time. For the next 2 weeks, I would go to his cabin every other day. I sent him lots of emails to tell him about how serious I am about this. And finally, he said, okay, you can do this, but you'll need a supervisor. And so I got my father as a supervisor. And that's how Cool the Globe started in what was supposed to be an internship project. But at the end of the 2 months, we realized that this is much bigger than what we think it is. Even the idea to build an app was really not formed at the time. But then I decided, when I realized that, and I remember we'd have lots of discussions, and my father had said, to make great things happen, you need to work with a missionary zeal. So what we did for those 2 months is just devour ourselves in lots of research. So at that time, if you would tell me the GDP of a country, I'd probably be able to tell you the per capita emissions of that country. That's how much time we just spent thousands of hours into researching emission factors, different countries, what are the kind of climate actions people can take, and how do we quantify that? Then, in fact, at the end of the 2 months, the idea for the app was formed for the first time. We didn't even have a name. But that's when I realized that this is what I want to do for the next 3 years that I'm going to be spending in university now. And so another good thing we did was I started reaching out to experts in different areas because we didn't really know coding. We didn't know anything about app development. So everything that we needed to learn, we just learned it by ourselves. We took lots of help from, people around the world. Lots of students came out to test the app, to, brainstorm on the storyboarding of it. And finally, by the time I graduated, Cool the Globe was ready to be launched. So that's really how it started.
Fantastic. Fantastic. What truly inspiring stories from both of you. And by the way, I'm seeing a lot of chatter on the Q&A box. So if anyone has questions, put them in there, and we'll get to them as we move along. So now, you guys kind of had an idea. You started the company, and made like in your case, Sneh, made some door-to-door sales. Take us through the next step of evolution. So you had to get more capital, right? And how did you go about getting that extra capital, and what was and you said you pitched people early days and you got nowhere because they didn't know what a robot was and what AI was at that time, I guess. But now that you were better known, how did that process go?
So I guess we went from a whiteboard concept to retail in less than $1 million and across 3 years, and extremely frugal minded till date, to be honest, how we operate. But at the same time, what was essential is when we started selling in retail and there was month-on-month growth showcased, we got our first institutional check from them. We got from Chirate Ventures, from Your Next Venture Capital, and on both sides we had partners who had amazing operating experience in their before they became venture capitalists. So one of them had worked with Mr. Steve Jobs, Dr. Vivek Mansingh. He worked with Steve Jobs on Macintosh. So he understood the product discipline that we had, and he appreciated that. And the other side, Mr. Sudhir Sethi had immense experience in at HCL and other companies before he went into Chirate. So we had some amazing institutional partners. What we soon realized that we would have to create this category in India. And while we've identified a problem, we've identified the solution, but the consumer brand building would require a lot of effort towards explaining it to the consumer and building that category. That category exists in a lot of markets like the US, like the Japan and other countries. So we decided that yes, while India can keep growing, which it is growing, we should launch the brand in the US. And in 2019, we did a Series A to launch the brand in the US. In our first month of launch, I think within 4 hours in the US, what we did as revenue was more than what we did in the entire financial year in India the previous year. We saw the depth in the market, we saw the scale, and we realized that this is where we need to grow the brand. And from there to now, we've grown from selling on our website to selling on Amazon to ultimately now we've gotten into some of the largest big box retail stores in the US who are going to be selling Miko this year. So that itself, the journey from door-to-door selling to being a leading consumer robotics brand in the US over the past 3 to 5 years. On an awareness level, we learned brand awareness service pointed to that 3 in 5 kids know about Miko in the US in our target age group. And so we're constantly further improving our brand and inside the US market. And while US is growing at an exponential rate for us, we are now also looking at gradually expanding into more markets from here for the next 5 years of progress from here on.
So you don't just show up in the US because this is the most competitive market in the world. So how much money did you kind of raise and need to get into the US market? It's not a simple proposition. So
I think we literally in 2019 we just showed up in the US, to be honest, and we raised a Series A round of 4 or 5 million, and we started selling the product on our website. But over the period of past 4-5 years, I think cumulatively we would have crossed $50 million in venture capital funding. to further grow the brand in the US market and get to positive unit economics across the channels where we are selling, getting to a point of getting through to retail, getting to opening these doors has taken as long as 3 years plus for us. So building a team inside the US and being extremely agile and focused on our go-to-market metrics. So that entire process has taken more than $50 million in venture capital funding.
And how has your company employee base grown over that time?
Oh, so I think when we started, we were barely less than 10. Now we are 275 plus employees spread across the world, and of course, majorly in India. The leadership is based across the world from the US to Canada to London, and India, of course, and a lot of execution happens within India itself. The deep technology AI R&D team, we have a team of masters, of PhDs who are teachers, artists, psychologists, educators. Good mix of product people would form almost 175 to 200 people who are focused onto the product, and rest would be business guys and support functions.
Fantastic. That's and we'll come back to some questions on the product in the next round. But Prachi, so how did you get this funded? You kind of graduated from college. You had an idea. So
Right.
how did you jump into the next step?
So actually, for a long time, we were just running it bootstrapped because at that time I did not even know anything about this ecosystem. I did not know that you could get formal funding in a way. But I liked how in your introduction you talked about how Indiaspora as a community is about going beyond transactions, and that's really what we experienced. When we launched Cool the Globe app, we just started making lots of campaigns about what the common man can do about climate change. And people liked the mission we were on. So I really experienced people from around the world coming to us and saying, this is what I'm good at. I would like to help you. So we got developers, we got UX UI designers, we got climate experts, we got just citizens who are spreading the word, who joined in our team first as volunteers. And just because we had this large community, we were running on the strength of that community for a long time. We launched Cool the Globe app as a free app. So I did not even have it in my mind that it can become an enterprise at that time. Then what started happening was, as the app started gaining traction for individuals, lots of organizations started coming to us saying, this is what you're doing for people, but we'd also like something similar in our organization to gamify sustainability for our workforce. And just because there were just such a strong demand coming from hundreds of organizations, we saw that there is, there's a potential for a product here. There's a potential for entrepreneurship. And that's really when I started thinking of this beyond an impact movement. And so, we had lots of mentors and advisors at the time. And just the way community had come to help us in different ways of building the app, I started talking to them, seeking their advice. I wasn't even seeking funding. I started talking to our well-wishers about how we could go about the next steps, because I had a realization that if we wanted to build to the next scale, there was some sort of a sustenance model, some capital that was needed. So I was just talking to people about our next step, about our vision. A couple of such well-wishers, we were talking to users of the app, in fact. So we'd have lots of discussions about app users, on brainstorming on what the next step could be. And we were talking about what kind of resources we would need for the next 2 years to make that happen. And we sat down and just made a list of the resources and, what kind of money that would take. It came out to be about $100,000 for the next 1 year. It was a small amount at the time, but some of our app users came and said, we'll just give it to you. And that was our first funding, which was very surprising for a lot of people, because it really was like people coming to help the mission beyond transactions. Then there were a couple of organizations who also put in some money. There was an event chamber of commerce who wanted to bring this app to use in events and conferences. So they put in some money to bring this for the first time in the event industry. And then, of course, we went to Shark Tank and got a deal from two sharks as well. So that was a fundraising journey, very informal and very, I think very magical in a way, where at the moment we thought that we need these resources and money, people just came and supported the mission.
Fantastic, fantastic. So some questions are coming through chat and stuff. So maybe I'll throw a couple of those out to you. So Sneh, for you, what is walk us through what your product does. It's exactly for a child or for the parent, and what is your value proposition when you went to a parent or went to the child? How did you sell it? What was it like?
So I guess, so first and foremost, we sell a robot that engages, educates, and entertains the child. That the way it does it, it talks to them, it teaches them, it learns from them, and grows with them as a companion. In due course, it is giving back reports back to the parent on social emotional wellness of the child, and also taking feedback from them on what are their expectations, so that the robot can work on that like a coach. So we feel that the future of parenting, as a society, we've evolved significantly, where both the parents have started working, children have have a whole new world of platforms to engage onto. But as a parent today, you often do not have options available where you hand over devices and gadgets, platforms made for you, you hand it over to your kids to engage them. How do you, and the biggest pain point of a parent today is, how do I meaningfully engage my child? How can I get my child to excel over others? How do I give adequate companionship? And how can I make my child a well-rounded human being? These are the four fundamental needs of any parent of today who has a child between 4 to 8 years of age. And from a child's perspective, what does a child want? The child wants engagement, emotional affinity, someone to answer their curiosity, and companionship. So keeping the needs of the parent and the child in mind, we realize that we don't need to build a product, we need to build an entire platform that keeps growing with the family, and every day keeps getting better, understands their needs, and continues to grow in that direction. So this is a robot that you can buy off the shelf. You can connect it to your Wi-Fi. It will roam around, it will talk to you, it will learn from you. The best part is it will initiate experiences with you. It may come and say, "Hey Sneh, how's the day in school? What did you do today?" And I will start a conversation, and it will engage with me on certain activities, become a role-playing game where the robot is a character in the game and another character in the game. And it is constantly trying to understand how well the child is doing and reporting metrics back to the parent within few weeks on specific aspects of social emotional wellness and so on. So we feel in the longer term, parents will leverage platform like Miko across every home, where they give instructions that I want my child to sleep early, I want my child to respect elders, and so on. And the robot, as a companion while playing, will reinforce these aspects and attributes, and come back to the parents as a coach, meaningful coach in the life of a child. So that's the whole value proposition of the product. If I had to summarize the USP, it is you're leveraging personal robotics with advanced AI, ensuring age-appropriate, culturally sensitive interactions, and combining education and entertainment for the global masses. So that's the whole USP of what we're doing.
And I know in India, you said it was 20,000 rupees. What is it in the US? So
the same product is for $200. And now this was way back then, but now we also have a product for 10,000 rupees and $99 in the US.
Okay, so it's similar pricing. It looks like you're not charging a premium in the US, nor are you selling it cheap in India.
Yeah, we sell across 140 plus countries. I think in the world of social media, I think it is pretty much people can compare very easily. Gone are those days where people used to travel outside just to get those products back and so on. So I think you have to maintain a brand consistency across markets for global audiences. So therefore you would find similar prices.
So Prachi, coming to you, you have this app. What does the app do? I'm a user. I download your app. What do I do with it?
So the app solves some key problems in stopping people from climate action. What we realize is that most people want to do the right thing. But what we need to do anything at all is first we need a clear goal in front of us. So as soon as a user comes in, they get a monthly target to reduce their carbon footprint, which is all we tell people is reduce a carbon footprint by 10% every year, which is doing small, simple actions, maybe 3-4 times in a month. So a lot of people, their hesitance about sustainability is that they think they have to now completely change and alter their life. We really emphasize on small but consistent actions. So once they have that target, they see hundreds of simple day-to-day climate action they can take from the time I wake up to the moment I go to sleep. What are some small actions I can take? And the app quantifies the avoided emissions with each of those actions. So for example, if I put up a solar water heater, so I'd see in the app that I saved about 14 kg of CO2 emissions by doing that for a month. Or I increase the temperature setting of my AC by 2 degrees Celsius. I'd be saving 8 kg of emissions in a month. I decided not to eat meat this month. I'd see that I saved about, it should come to about 5 kg of emissions if I didn't eat chicken. So I'd see lots of these day-to-day actions I can take across my energy usage of appliances, materials, my travel, things I do at home, things I do at work. And I can quantify the impact of these small actions. But then a lot of people think, what difference can one person make? We believe that when a lot of people like us come together, a collective impact can be extraordinary. So a global meter on the homepage of the app tracks in real time the emissions saved by all app users combined. And that's the power of collective action.
Fantastic. And it's almost like I'm obsessed with how many steps I do every day, right? The 10,000 steps. So it's almost like that. It's a gamification. I look at my phone every few hours, how many more steps do I need? I guess you get people into these habits and they can make a difference. Yeah.
And how many steps are you at?
I finished my 10,000 today, so I'm done. But the thing is that you said your business now has moved from individual users to companies and organizations coming in and making this as an offer to their employees to engage them better. So your sale has completely changed from each employee, each person to a company buying this product, right? I mean, that's a big switch in a business model. So how are you going through that?
I would say it's more of an addition rather than a switch, because the app will remain for individuals as well. And in fact, our individual users of the app come in and say, I would want to bring it to my company. So that really becomes sort of a sales cycle for the company model. It was lots of our users who first brought the idea of the app to the companies. And companies, in fact, is a way to even add on to the mission, because with each organization, we get 10,000 individuals at once. What we do in the company version is that you get an organizational dashboard, which is tracking in real time the climate impact of the workforce. Then there's challenges. So there can be a CEO's challenge, or there can be an ESG department's challenge. So companies can throw various challenges, sustainability challenges for their employees. And the app has a leaderboard which tracks which employees are taking the most sustainable actions, and we can give rewards based on that. Employees can also reduce their emissions and offset that on the app. And then there can be, small competitions between departments. So HR department and marketing department can compete on which employees are taking the most climate actions. So basically, we're trying to sort of gamify climate action within an organization. Lots of organizations now have very ambitious net zero targets and very ambitious sustainability goals. But I think the most important asset that organizations have in realizing them is their employees. Real climate action is when every single member of the workforce really believes in sustainability and practices it in their day-to-day lives. And that's what our app is helping organizations do.
Fantastic. Sneh, there were a couple of questions for you. And one is, you've built this product in India. You're competing with global companies, right? So how do you defend your IP? What is the moat you've created for the product set? How do you keep ahead of the game? Because there's so many other guys now looking at you saying, I want to do that and more, right? So what are you doing there?
No, absolutely. I think we realize that technology typically has a saturation curve where there's a window where technology is new, and then after a few years it becomes obsolete. And we realized that in 2015 when we started, we knew that at least until 2040, there's never going to be obsolescence of AI, where there's going to be enough white space for each company to work upon and identify their niche and keep building it there. So we started building a workforce in that direction since 2015. We started focusing on emotional intelligence. We started focusing on continuous long format conversations and built a stack in that direction. I think when you look at the large tech organizations, they focus on a broader segment. We started focusing on niche. We started focusing on kids, trained our models for kids data. Then we now started also looking at geriatric care, elderly care segment, and so on. How can we create a value proposition for them? So point number one, focus on niche segments and specialized applications with a lot of depth, which stays away from what the big players are focused on to. Extreme agility and innovation. I mean, the kinds of examples that our team does, we always look at non-linear approaches to get to solve our problem statement. So culturally sensitive AI is an extremely important thing. Like in India, Miko should talk about Virat Kohli. In the US, it should talk about Steph Curry, for example. So being the product should be culturally sensitive and regionally domestic for that market. So typically companies would spend minimum 2 years to make it relevant for that geography. Our product management process, we are able to get there in 6 months time. So being extremely agile and innovative in your approach. A lot of focus on customer-centric approach overall and proprietary building. Like you won't get a single consumer robot globally for $99. That's probably the most affordable consumer robot that you may have across the globe at what it has to offer at that price point. This is because almost every layer of, I would say 98% of every layer of your tech stack has been built in-house. You're not licensing from someone. If you had to start licensing from others, then your cost would go up and then you would not be able to build it profitably. So, and the focus is not to build a product, but a platform. Today, an important angle of our product is the partnerships that we have with the Walt Disney Group, the Paramount, Oxford. All of them have published their content onto Miko. And these partnerships make it into a platform, a connected product with content being delivered on a personalized basis to the child. So this also adds another moat. The platform keeps growing, the offerings keep growing. Like this year, Miko starts teaching you new languages. Next year, Miko will start teaching you new subjects. Ultimately, Miko will start helping therapists take teletherapy sessions on the robot. So the amount of applications keep growing every quarter and onto the platform, which are virtually added onto every device. So as a result, the platform focus, these 3-4 areas are the ones how you protect yourself on a long-term basis and build it into a long-term business.
And I'm waiting for the version that does my homework and tests too. So
Absolutely.
That'll be an additional $10 per month.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need climate change awareness on Miko also.
Yes, yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be a good
100%.
partnership.
Yes, yes.
Something concrete coming out of the first tech talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the child should know, don't throw your recycle stuff or reuse something and don't throw it. And, it could be some very interesting things that can take place there.
Yes.
So Prachi, coming to you, you're in the enterprise now. What else are you looking at? Are there other things as you get into these companies? It's not just climate. Are they looking for more engagement from the employees in different ways? Where do you envision cool the globe going over time?
Absolutely. So the vision is that we want to make climate action easy, rewarding, and measurable, and incentivize people towards good behavior. And you can do that in many ways. We're realizing that the app for workforce that we are introducing now is a starting point. Once we've gone there, organizations want to know what are the different ways they can reach their net zero targets. How do they engage with employees? They want consulting on calculating their carbon footprint. They want to, once they have brought this for their employees, they want to then go to scope 1 and scope 2, which is emissions of their factories and office spaces to the emissions of their product itself. So there's a lot more that can be done on the organizational front. The idea is every 6 months come up with an offering. After this, we're starting with a niche industry for ESG management softwares. In terms of the B2C, again, there's a lot to do. The app is and will always remain free for individuals. But once when we had launched it for individuals, just the way organizations came to us, a lot of other sustainable products and businesses also came to us saying, you have this community of climate conscious citizens who want to take action. Can we showcase our sustainable products to them? So to move this towards to add a marketplace onto the app, to reward citizens when they take climate action and when they reduce their carbon footprint, just like a Cred or a Paytm, they get discounts and offers on other sustainable products. So to bring these kind of models into the app, there's a lot in store. But the mission is always to make climate action easy, measurable, rewarding, and to use technology and community as a tool to do that.
So a couple of things. How many people in the company? Have you raised more money, looking to raise money?
So I think what we're looking at now is to onboard more and more organizations. So we have 10 organizations onboarding. We're launching the organizational version in the next month. So we have the first 10 clients coming in. We have about 10 people in the company right now, just the way Sneh had when he started out. We'd raise money, but in the next couple of months, once we have, we raised the first pre-revenue, but it was for no equity. So the next round we'd raise once we have the organizational version launched. But I think, we have organizations coming in and clients coming in themselves. So hopefully we may not need to raise money. We may sustain just on the basis of the revenue coming in from this organization. So let's see how the next few months will unfold.
Terrific. So Sneh, question for you as you look to broaden your portfolio of products. Question is about the geriatric community, right? You have so many seniors, and in India now you start hearing stories of the kids are not spending any time with their parents. And so this could be a great product for that whole kind of, and not just in India, but worldwide. A lot of senior citizens living alone need to entertain themselves and talk to someone. What's your strategy there?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Declining birth rates, aging population is a huge situation in a lot of developed countries. And there is a huge shortage of healthcare professionals to address to senior citizen needs. So we are currently training our models for with that data to ensure that we are able to provide the appropriate companionship to them and address their core needs of engagement and attention that is needed to someone at that age. So I guess we currently have a small pilot team that is focused on applications outside of what we regularly do, and this pilot team is in discussions is already engaged onto pilots with some bodies in the US, some in Germany, and some in Japan to have our models trained. I think this should be a year-long plus effort, and then post that we should be in a position to introduce value propositions and offerings for them. but this is our current business is doing very well. It's scaling on its own. It's scaling. It's as per the targets that we have. So these are additional offshoots that will come by once the company crosses like 200 million, 250 million. Then these are additional channels which can further add to our diversity. The whole idea is build a global robotics and AI brand which is focused on social emotional well-being of different segments of the society. So it's building AI for good, responsible AI, ethical AI, building it for the good of the society. That's the whole focus of this pursuit.
So do you envision, as you do these pilots, that the form factor of the robot would change, right?
100%, 100%. It has to. And so there's a lot of focus that goes in making a child-centric design to someone for a senior citizen and so on. Uh, every aspect of it would, but the core is what you built it at the back end, and the form factor and those elements keep adapting to the requirements that's there. But the core is the technology stack that you've built over past 10 years and how you're making it better and better on every aspect, be it computer vision, be it the robotic stack, or be it the AI stack which is running on it, and so on.
Great. Prachi, a question for you. It says organizations have ambitious ESG programs, and you could play a key role in companies that are doing the ESG reporting and the other activities. So talk a little bit more about what your plans are in that space.
Absolutely. In fact, many of the organizations are now getting Cool the Globe for their workforce as a part of their ESG programs. And it was a lot of ESG heads who actually suggested that we transition and add on workforce version to our app. It's a great way on the app. Not just we gamify climate action for employees, but we also keep a space to communicate our ESG initiatives to the workforce and to the employees to sort of get them excited about what the organization is doing about ESG. Because ESG is not just a checkbox on the sidelines anymore. It's becoming a central part of the organization. And so employees need to be mobilized for the ESG programs. So organizations can even put in their ESG programs on the app for employees to participate in. They can put it on the community dashboard. We can include their ESG and offsetting projects into the app where employees donate to those as well. Along with that, organizations, even if they don't have if they don't have a community subscription for their employees of Cool the Globe app, they can still engage in a way where they can sponsor challenges for the community, not just their employees. So suppose an organization is launching an electric vehicle. They can sponsor an e-mobility challenge for the wider Cool the Globe community, where we have 100,000 users from 140 countries. So different organizations, based on their ESG goals, targets, can sponsor challenges for community outside of their workforce and sort of communicate their ESG for within the workforce and the community outside as well.
Great. So Sneh, I want to now focus on the challenges you face as a company. What keeps you up at night, kind of stuff, and how do you plan to kind of address those?
I think broadly, US is currently a main market for business, and there is this cyclic nature of consumer buying in the US, where they tend to buy in the Thanksgiving, Christmas period, and then they just don't shop in the rest of the quarters. I mean, there's a huge spike that you see at that time. So this is one thing which is as a company which is constantly investing into R&D and has a strong focus on R&D. So we want to ensure that yes, the revenues are spread out across the other quarters and so on. That could mean working with more channels who typically do their buying in other quarters, or at the same time, it could also mean expanding into more geographies to ensure that the cyclic nature of the US market is gone. That's one of my key problem statements that I'm focused on currently. Building the right team. Right now, the company's gotten to a scale of 40-45 million in revenue top line, and we want to build the company further to a 200, 300 million and $1 billion team. So ensuring that the right team that comes in who can help grow the business onto that scale for the subsequent years. That takes my second aspect of my focus overall in ensuring the right culture and team is there and the right processes are there, because with the rapid scale up, we want to build the right processes because we don't want to do this for the short term. Like all three co-founders are aged like 34 and that's the average age, and we want to keep building this, do an IPO and further build the brand over the coming decades. So therefore, with that focus, we want to ensure that the right processes are there within the organization where it is having a strong foundation for future scale up. And so those are the three typical areas that I'm focused on.
So two quick follow-up questions from the audience. One is, in India, are you planning on localized vernacular concept, or is it all in English?
So our NLP also can support up to 50 languages. We've deployed 8 so far onto Miko 3. And vernacular languages, yes, that is in progress. I think more than languages, I think we believe in focusing on those areas which are not solved. Vernacular languages, there's a lot of effort going on from the government side as well as from the private side as well. But I think cultural alignment is one area which is quite unsolved, be it even the big techs or in the US or anywhere. Like for example, being inside a family where you start talking about the dietary preference in a Jain home is very different from that in a Punjabi home. And so how does the robot culturally align with that family to ensure that and even for simple questions, a parent of a certain inclination will be much more liberal in expecting that Miko should answer these questions, and the parent would want that Miko be more conservative overall in the way that Miko is approaching towards certain questions and so on. So how do we ensure that the AI stack aligns with the culture of the family is an important problem statement. I think languages will keep getting added in due course as and when.
Great. And Prachi, in your case, a user in Colombia or Mexico versus a user in India, how do you address the cultural issues, if any?
Right. So the app is internationalized for all countries in the world, which means based on the country you're in, the data of the app will change. Your default target will change. Some of the metrics will change. That's the one thing that's the first step that we have done. What we want to do in the next step is, of course, it's internationalized and localized, but it's not yet in different languages. But technically, it's very easy as long as we have the translations. So the first language we want to bring it in is, in fact, Punjab State Council had approached us asking if we could get the app in Punjabi, so that they could get all the government schools across Punjab to use the platform. So we're looking at localizing it first in Indian languages and dialects. We're even getting the organizations who get the app for their employees. They can also sponsor another school to get the app for the school children. So when we're using it for kids, I think it's important for them to have it in their own language as well. So that's the next step.
Got it. Well, it's been a really fascinating session with both of you. I want to kind of conclude by asking what knowledge would you impart to other founders or people who want to start a company today, right? Like I said, there are 117,000 startups in India, but it looks like every day thousands more are getting started. So, Sneh, what is your advice for someone in college or someone in high school or someone looking to drop out of college or whatever be the case? What's your advice to someone who wants to start a company now?
I think it cannot be a better time to start a business today in India. There's no doubt about it. I was fortunate to be invited to the India-Austria meet by Honorable Prime Minister Sir Narendra Modi ji, and so I was part of the delegation there. And I just came back. The way the world sees India today and the kind of horizons that India and Indian startups can offer globally. The time is right for Indian companies to go global. So there are no two thoughts about it. We are in the best possible time to start today, whether it's in your first year of college or in your last year, or even if you're in your 30s and you're doing a job of sorts. But I think the most important, keep meaningfully hustling and don't give up is the only, like, it's never over till the founder calls it quits. So therefore, just keep hustling and keep meaningfully hustling. As long as you know that, yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel, you will definitely get there overall. But a lot of honesty and sincerity in your efforts, and I think things will fall in place. They do fall in place over a period of time. So we've seen COVID, we've seen supply chain shortages, we've seen semiconductor shortages, we've seen terrible amount of situations in the past 10 years. We launched a product and demonetization happened the next day. So we having said that, I think just keep going and things fall in place. That's all I can say.
Fantastic. And Prachi, I know you're a rare breed in that there are not that many women founders yet, even in the US or in India. So what is your advice to another woman who is trying to start a company, and what do you tell that person?
So, people talk about how entrepreneurship, especially as a woman founder, can be a lonely journey, but I disagree with that. I feel like a startup is not something you build alone. Just the way it takes a village to grow it, to raise a child, it takes a village to build and scale a startup. So I think especially as a woman, I think my two pieces of advice would be to be helpless and be shameless. So know that there is a wide community of other women founders, other entrepreneurs, mentors who are ready and willing to help you, to support you, to believe in you, especially because there's just very few of us. So people are rooting for women founders to do well, and people are very willing to give you that support, but you have to be willing and ready to take that support. So that is the first thing. And the second thing is to be shameless, because again, as women founders, we often are last ones to speak our mind and to ask very shamelessly for the things we need. So to be shameless in approaching people, to be shameless in talking about what you're doing, and to be shameless about your dreams and ambitions. So I think these would be the two things I'd want to tell them.
Fantastic. And so that concludes our first episode. You guys have been terrific first guests. I think the next set of guests will have a high bar to cross. So thank you both. And I guess they can reach people watching you, can reach both of you on LinkedIn. I'll let them hit you up on LinkedIn and other channels. In terms of Indiaspora, just go to our website and subscribe to our newsletter if you want to stay in touch. We won't sell your data to anyone. But it's been a terrific session, Sneh and Prachi. Thank you so much for spending an hour with us. And this concludes our first episode. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, MR. Thank you so much, Indiaspora.
Take care now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.